Hey everyone, it's Jolt here. Welcome to Visual PKM. In today's video, I want to show you how you can convert this visual layout of an article into this PDF document that looks good and reads well. The flow of the text makes sense and there are nice illustrations, and overall it's a document that's almost publishing ready. Of course, it is not publishing ready. You would need to do some more work, but this is a pretty good start of an article. So before we dive into the guts of the conversation, I just want to highlight that what I'm going to show you today is fully adaptable to your needs. If you dislike generative AI, you can skip that part. If you don't want to create custom template or scripts, you can skip that part as well. The workflow is adaptable to how far you want to go with it. Now, before jumping into the actual solution, there are two things I want to talk about just to set the scene. Thing number one is the promise of Zettelkasten. Practically any book you read on the subject, you will see this promise that if you have a good Zettelkasten system, then you will never start from scratch. Be it a blog post, a video, an article, whatever you're working on, you will not need to start from scratch because you can simply pick up a branch from your Zettelkasten system, lay out the cards, and bang, you have a good draft, a good first draft of your article. All you need to do is to stitch it together. Now, I've been always envious of this, and today I think I have a solution that can actually make this happen. The second part of setting the scene is about the promises or claims I make in the Mindset Visual Thinking Framework. I advocate for 4-dimensional PKM and for Visual Zettelkasten. So let's look at these two topics. 4D PKM can be best understood bottom up. So what is 2-dimensional PKM? Well, the first dimension are the text documents that you're writing, and I call this linear text because you need to read from the top left to the bottom right, or of course, if your language reads from a different direction, then following that direction. And that's dimension number one, your linear text. The second dimension are the separate documents that you're creating, each document its own file, maybe in your file system. You can elevate your game by implementing 3-dimensional PKM, and in my understanding and my interpretation, this is what Tiago Forte and Nick Milo are advocating. They're advocates of 3D PKM. The third dimension is the links between your notes. So if you have a 2-dimensional PKM, but you add links between keywords and files, sort of like your own wiki system, then Wikipedia, then the third dimension appears here, and those are the links. Now, what's the fourth dimension? Well, the fourth dimension is when you start to add illustrations. And it's not only adding illustrations, but when you start to reuse illustrations like icons and parts of images and use those images across various notes to connect ideas. And I call this a next dimension because the way we process information is very different from how we process text. Text we process linearly. Visuals we process in a parallel way. So a good mindset to demonstrate this, how a linear text differs from a visual note, is if you think about a shop receipt versus a shop window. Which one is faster if you want to find out what the shop is selling? Now, the other concept I want to talk about is Visual Zettelkasten. This builds on the concept of having notes that have two sides, a visual side and a textual side. So let me show you in this case, if I select my note here and open the back side of the note. So the back side is the Markdown side of this note. Then here I have all sorts of text notes that are related to this. Again, if I flip this over to Excalidraw view mode, then I can see the drawing. If I flip this over to Markdown view mode, then I can see the Markdown side of the document and I can see my notes. Of course, you can achieve this not only with Excalidraw. For example, the slide notes under slides in PowerPoint act in a similar way. But my idea is, or my advocacy is, that this way you can include your visual representation, your visual summary on a card on the front, and supporting background information like your sources, like the summary of the idea, like related notes on the back of the card. And so my promise is the following, that by visually organizing your ideas, you get to something that's much more powerful than shuffling bullet points. And this is where the whole idea of Visual Zettelkasten comes in, that you have your notes as Visual Zettelkasten notes. Each of these cards are an individual Zettelkasten note that you can switch over or flip over to see what's on the back side. But when you need to organize your ideas, you can organize it at this visual level. Now, these were the setting the scene topics. There's one more thing I wanted to bring in here, and that is Ted Blizzard, who approached me yesterday with an email, and he shared with me his idea or vision for the paper writing machine. This is practically a tool that helps academics produce documents with citations. And this builds on the whole idea that we talked about until now with the Zettelkasten system, that you're reading books, articles, take notes on the web, and you capture all of these in your Zettelkasten notes. And from this, you can create, maybe with a data view query, maybe with other tools, you can create an outline of your paper, and then you can convert that into a document that's maybe a Word document or Google Docs or whatever. So this is the solution that I want to show you today. So the components of the solution that we are going to look at are a visual layout in Excalidraw, and we're going to look at that in just 1 second. It's an Excalidraw script. It's the Excalidraw Writing Machine script. It's ChatGPT, Obsidian Templater, and AI for Templater as 2 additional plugins on top of Excalidraw, and it's a templater template. And again, you can go as far or as little as you like. So let's start with this visual layout that you can follow. So this is the basic concept that first I want to show you, and then we'll look at the actual example that we looked at the beginning. So the way this works is the script, the Excalidraw Writing Machine script, will go through your sequence of arrows and capture the text from the different elements. So here it will start with the main title, then the next lines until there's a fork in the road are just simply going to be paragraphs within that main title or under the main title. And when you have a fork on the road, then the first text, be it on the arrow or be it a separate text element, is going to be your section heading. And again, it's going to be followed by the paragraphs that follow in a linear way later on. And if you have a Zettelkasten note, like in this case, so again, I can show you this is a Zettelkasten note that is a very simple note. So I have this source section that says the mindset framework and the idea, that this is the idea. So if you have this layout, then you need to select the very first element in your sequence, and you need to run the Excalidraw Writing Machine script. When I run the script, I can choose a template to use. Now I'm going to select another file and press escape. I'll explain about this later. For now, all I wanted to do is not to use a template. And you can see the end result. So there's the main title, that's a level 2 heading. Then I have paragraph 1, 2, and 3. Then I have section 2.1 here with paragraph 1 and 2. And then I have section 2.2 and I have paragraph 2.2.1. I have the image. Under the image, I have the text that we saw on the back. And I have the source here in brackets afterwards. So I have the reference to the source for this node. So this is the output that the script generates. So now let's look at how you can use this output. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to actually head over to my writing machine demonstrations page. Now, before we get going, I want to show you how to install the Excalidraw Writing Machine script. It's pretty simple. You need to click here on the Obsidian Tools panel. And here you need to select the first button, that's Install or Update Excalidraw Scripts. And once it loads, you need to just type in Writing Machine. It will take you to this link to the Excalidraw Writing Machine. And you can click here to install the script. So what you can see here are my cards from the book on a page summary for Atomic Habits. So each of these cards, if you can look at this, each of these cards, you're not going to be very surprised, are a Visual Zettelkasten node. So on the back of the card, I have some data here about the source, about the idea. I have my 360 view of the idea and so on. So there's lots of content here for each of the cards. As I was creating these cards, I was creating each of them as a Zettelkasten node in my system. But of course, each of these comes from somewhere in James Clear's book. And you can see that I've created this flow that it starts with the book cover. Then there's a brief introduction of what this article is going to be about. And then I continue on with 4 sections in my article. Tiny actions can lead to big differences. Why focus on identity and on system is crucial, etc. You can read these. So if now I click on Atomic Habits, and again I start the writing machine script. Again, still I'm not going to choose the templater script. I'm going to select another file. The reason I see this menu, first time you run the script, but we'll look at that, you will not see this menu, but only the next one. But if you've already selected a template, it's going to be offered to you. If I choose to select another file and press escape, then it means that I'm not using any template. So when I do this, you can see that this document was created. It's the same as the document we looked at in this case. So it follows the same logic. You can see here the images, the text, and here you go. So here's the stitched together material. And each of these sentences that you see here are the sentences that I wrote to capture my ideas about that specific permanent node that I created as a visual permanent node. And now if you want to stop here, great, you can stop and you can take this document and start to type and improve your text. And I think you've already achieved a lot because you have a visual layout, how you organize your text. You generated the document from that, and from then on, you can start to work on this document. But if you want to use AI, then you have a simple option. You can just simply select everything and copy this to the clipboard. And then you can head over to ChatGPT. And in ChatGPT, I already have my prompt here, so you're an expert in academic writing and so on. You can pause the video and read it here. And I'm going to paste the text that was generated by Excalidraw Writing Machine here, and I'm just going to press enter. And with this, ChatGPT is going to do its magic. It's going to generate the article. I've asked ChatGPT to generate the article into return the result as a Markdown code block. So that's why here I'm receiving this Markdown code block. The text is ready. I'm going to scroll up to the top of the text and just copy the code like this. I'm going to head back to Obsidian and just simply press paste. And here I can see that unfortunately in this generation now something happened to the images. No, nothing happened to the images. Good. It just needed time to load the images. So you can see that the article is ready. This is how it looks. So there's a bit of a guide here, and then so you can read this. I've done several runs, of course, as with GPT, it's always slightly different, but I think it's good enough. So that's option one. If you want to further automate this, then your next option is to use AI for Templator. So AI for Templator, well, I'm going to be using two scripts really. So let's come to Community Plugin, and I'm going to show you, first of all, AI for Templator. So this is an excellent plugin for running ChatGPT queries from TFT Hacker. So you need to install AI for Templator, and of course you need to install the Templator plugin as well. Once you have those installed and configured, then you will need a template as well. This is the template that I created. I'm going to include this link, upload this somewhere and include the link in the video description, so you will not need to start from scratch. Practically, this is a very simple template. I'm going to close these two files. It defines a system message, a user prompt, uses a model. Now, about the models, I found that, well, GPT-4o Mini is a very low-cost model. ChatGPT 4o latest is a slightly more expensive model, but frankly, with all my testing, I've spent around 50 cents or less over the 2 days, so it is really not a huge amount of money. The reason I chose these two models here is because they allow for more output tokens. Normally this is 4096, the maximum limit, for example, for GPT-4o. These two models allow more, and since the article can be bigger, I went for this. And that's almost about it. There are three more things I want to show you here, just so you understand what's going on. When the Excalidraw Writing Machine script runs, at the end it will place the generated text on window.ewm. So when the templater script is executed, it can take the value from window.ewm and use that to submit to ChatGPT. So that's point number one. Point number two, the way I developed this templater script to help with debugging, finding errors, is before closing, it will place on EWM response. It again on the window object, it will store all these variables, so you can go to developer console and find out what has happened. And I think the third and most important point here is I introduced, so in the writing machine script, I introduced this placeholder that wherever this is found in the template that you provide, it is replaced with the generated text. And this is good because this way you can include the original text in your template. I'll show you in a second how this will work here. So that's about the templater file. And now let's come here and run our script. So I'm going to start writing machine, and I'm going to use my template here. And when I press enter, then you will see that the page was generated, and you need to pay attention to these bubbles in the top right corner. They will go on for quite a while, just as ChatGPT took its time responding. It takes its time in this case as well. So you will need to wait a little for this to finish the generation. And there you go. The generation is ready. You can see some stats about the generation, and we have the actual document here. So this is a pretty nice document. Well, I mean, it's similar to the previous one that we looked at the beginning. I'm not going to go into the details. I'm going to upload that PDF. Again, we'll include the link in the video description so you can take a look at what was generated. So the script comes with settings, but the first time you need to run it once for the setting to appear. So let me show you what I mean. If I come to Excalidraw plugin settings, at the bottom of settings, settings for installed scripts. Now you will see that I have the Excalidraw Writing Machine here, but that's because I've developed the script and it's not in my downloaded folder. You can see here. So this is actually for you not going to be here. Nothing is here, but once I run the script for the first time, so I need to select an element and I need to start writing machine. You can see that now I have 2 writing machine scripts here, and I'm going to run the downloaded version. And I'm just going to press escape because I don't want to use a template at this time. If I press escape here, it means that whatever is generated into a completely blank document. So when I do this, then this document was generated. And if I come back to settings, I can scroll down to the bottom of settings for installed scripts, and you can see that downloaded Excalidraw Writing Machine is here. And there are a couple of settings you can do. You can change the name of the summary section. In my case, I use the idea in all my notes. So instead of summary, I call it the idea. Whatever you call it, you can type it in here. You can set where the source is. So that's a section called source. The template path, you don't need to worry about it. When you select the template from the drop-down list, it's going to be filled out automatically. And this is where the script stores its last used template. And finally, you can choose to embed the images or not to embed. So if I turn this off, then I'm going to close this and I'm going to run the script again. So if I come here, and then the same text is generated, but without the images. So you can get rid of the images as well. So that's about installing the script. Now, if you want to edit the script, which you might actually want to do because there are some... So my mindset here is this is a working prototype, but as many people, as many Zettelkasten systems, so there is no way of configuring it exactly the way you need it. And that is the power of Excalidraw scripts. So if I come here to the Excalidraw folder and come down to scripts and download it here, then if I scroll down, I'm going to find the Excalidraw Writing Machine here. And if I click on this, then the script opens. And yes, you need a bit of scripting skill to edit this. I tried to add some comments here and there that it is easy to follow. It is not a very complicated script, but of course, what's complicated and what's simple is a very relative scale. So I can understand if this is scary, and if it is, then just stick to the settings. If you know what you're doing, or if you want to experiment, because what have you to lose? So if you mess it up, you download it again, there's nothing to lose. Then I think it's a good place to start. Also, pro tip, you can just select the whole thing, head over to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to modify it this and that. Somehow you want to modify it, and you can just simply paste the script here, and then you can use ChatGPT to do whatever updates you need to do with this script. On a final note, there's one important thing that you need to understand on how the text is generated and how arrows are interpreted. The sequence of how you create the arrows is important. So let me just show you what I mean. Here I'm going to write, this is going to be my title, and then this is going to be section 1, and this is going to be section 2, and then I'm going to have paragraph 1.1 and paragraph 1.2, and here I'm going to have paragraph 2.1 and paragraph 2.2. And now let me show you how you can confuse the system. So this is good to know if you want to avoid this. So I'm going to first draw the arrow to section 2. And I'm just going to use these nice elbow connectors. And then I'm going to select section 1. And from here, I can just simply continue on drawing the line. So I'm just going to finish this off. And what you're going to see is now if I generate this with the writing machine script, I don't want like this. So if I generate this, you can see that section 2 is at the top, followed by section 1, which is not ideal. So what I can do instead is I can just simply delete this and delete this, and then I can come back and add first section 1 and then section 2. And now if I run this again, then you will see that now section 1 is first and then section 2. So this solves this problem. And so that's all I wanted to share with you today. I hope you found it as exciting as I did. I think this opens up so many opportunities for visually organizing your ideas into flows. You can create presentations, you can create show notes. I'm going to be using this to create scripts for my videos. There's many use cases that you can do. I think this is such a nice opportunity, and hopefully you can also use these scripts to customize them to your needs. And please, in the comments, I'd be very interested in how you use this, what you thought of the entire process, and what you're missing from all of this. And finally, if you find this useful and interesting and want to learn more about the Mindset Visual Thinking Framework and 4D PKM, then take a look at the links below. Check out the Visual Thinking Workshop and join one of the next cohorts. I'd love to show you more about the framework. And of course, in the office hours of the Visual Thinking Workshop, we have time to discuss other topics, including scripting and automating in Obsidian. So that's just a plus, an additional opportunity that you can gain from the workshop. Thank you.